Late last week, Ubisoft dropped the first developers blog specifically for Riders Republic. So for the main topic this week, Mitch and I are going to be giving you our thoughts. That's coming up soon. This is Nick and Mitch, STEEPCAST, episode 39.
My snowboard's been waxed and the chocolate is hot. STEEPCAST reporting with you live from the top of Mount Blanc. Snow missed me, making you miss me. Cause I'm hucking it up 12, I'll throw it into a misty.
Welcome back to STEEPCAST. Like Nick said, they put out the first developer blog for Riders Republic. And if you aren't one of the over 1,400 people that have watched our video on that, you can click the link in the top right corner right now. Go watch that video and then come back to this one because we will be giving our thoughts on what they announced.
The Tartiflette Games slopestyle event is coming. Submissions will open October 11th and we will have details for all of you in the very near future. Stay tuned to the channel, stay tuned to our website for the latest announcements and news surrounding the Tartiflette Games.
And finally, it's time to give you another hint at the new show we announced all about Riders Republic, so take a look.
Any guesses yet? Anyone? Come on, someone has to have it. Well, stay tuned to STEEPCAST because we have to reveal the name eventually. But until then, it's time for the Reddit Roundup!
Our first post for this week comes from Kayla BTX, and they had two sitting close to the top. They are both worth the look. This one is a reminder that you can grind on those power lines. I love the camera work, the filter, the beat, the song playing behind is amazing.
This next one comes to us from the legend Mekish. Well, Tiger Woods better watch out. You know what time it is. Of course, it is time for another clean hole-in-one. Oh, with an ankle breaker at the end.
Thirdly, we got a picture from Inspectra Gadget of how does this even happen? And I'm wondering the same thing. We've got a snowboarder standing on the back of a wingsuiter above the rocks. Just a perfectly timed photo with a friend.
Talk about riding with friends. Up next, we have another screenshot from Inspectra Gadget. Second time is always twice as nice. And this is no exception. The bright pink sledder hanging out with a snowboarding unicorn. I think I might be the first person in the history of forever to say that sentence. And I'm proud of that. Thank you, Inspectra Gadget. This one is awesome.
And finally, the last post of the week comes from Feeling Minute 4417, and they've found a new space jump ? So let's watch this. It's a big sheer face on the mountain. And then he's coming down with speed, a big kicker, and just flying through the air. I love the monologue in the background too, the nice voice. And then just super clean on the landing and heading into those avalanche. Maybe not, spoke too soon. Right by the avalanche fencing.
Well done to the top 5 from r/steep this week. You guys are still putting out heat and we're here for it. Now, I think it's time we talk about some Riders Republic. Like I said at the top, like Mitch said during Steep News, Riders Republic released a developer's blog last Friday, and now is the first chance that Mitch and I both get to sit down and discuss our thoughts on this first blog post. Again, if you haven't seen Mitch's news recap of the dev blog, go ahead and check that out so you know what we are getting into right here, but here we go. Okay, so the first thing I want to discuss with you, Mitch, I've seen a couple different posts throughout the community about the freestyle system and how there's an auto mode and there's a manual mode. A lot of people are saying that setup is kind of what we already had in Steep. I'm wondering if we know how riders will be different in any way yet.
It does sound similar to Steep at the start of this. Trick mode, there was trick safety in Steep, where if you had trick safety on, the game would make sure that you land, and as long as it wasn't a crazy situation, but it would make sure you land on your skis or your snowboard properly. If you had trick safety turned off, then you could crash. You could just keep flipping and wipe out if you didn't time it right. From reading this article, though, I feel like if you have that manual mode turned on, it's going to be even harder to land. That's just first impression, but it seems like you get complete freedom over your rotations and flips and your tricks, and you have to be sure that you're going to land. Auto mode, it says you just have to start the trick and then it's going to do the rest for you.
And the one thing that really caught my eye in this section about the freestyle was the fact that there are 72 unique tricks in the game. Getting to a point where you can use master manual mode with no errors or just very small, very limited errors is going to be a feat. Like, you're gonna have to put the work in. You're gonna have to know all 72 to compete in TFG events, and different, high score chasers are going to have to nail all of that down. That's going to be imperative. And that just wasn't the case in Steep. You could play it safe on safe landing mode and, you weren't getting the highest scores, but you could still compete.
The other thing that caught my eye in this freestyle section was how in detail they go about the tricks that you can do. We never really saw this level of detail from Steep, and they're talking about all of the rotations you can do based on the time you have in the air. You still have the front flip, the back flip, Lincoln, Wildcat, Tame Dog, but then with the off-axis rotations, you need more air time to pull these off, and then depending on the sport, they have a bunch of different names. In Steep, you mainly had corks and rodeos for off-axis rotations. Now they also name the bio, the twister, and they say there's more as well, so that might depend on the sport. And they also talk about how if you're going from a flip into a spin, it's going to be faster than if you're going from a spin to a flip. I don't feel like I noticed much of a difference between those off-axis rotations in Steep. I would usually, hit a jump, just flick the stick and see how many I could get in there, whether it was a cork or a rodeo. I finally mastered the difference, but it sounds like it's going to be trickier to do one, but it's going to pay off if you're able to do it, if you have that longer airtime, especially with those trick moves that they talk about too. It now sounds like the gear that you wear will impact the tricks that you're able to perform. It says each gear carries a set of 12 unique tricks, which you add that up, that goes into 72 tricks. But you can pick from ski, snowpark, ski, off-track, snowboard, snowpark, snowboard, off-track, bike slopestyle, and bike freeride. So it sounds like if you pick the snowpark skis, you're going to have a different set of tricks, maybe a different look to your style than if you're using the freeride skis. But at the same time, if you're doing a trick competition and pull out those freeride skis, you're going to look different than everyone else, and it might work for you.
Because of all of this, I really think this game is going to be way more competitive than Steep ever was, or at least ever could be. I mean, you're going to have people up there that are putting their own combos together, and it sounds like we are going to have pretty much free reign over what we want to do, when we want to do it, and in what order we want to do it. So, holding on to a trick for a hair longer, getting a couple of those extra points, things that Steep just wouldn't let you do all the time. All I can say is I am super excited to do our community challenges like TFG in Riders Republic, because it's going to go up another notch for sure. Let's harken back to the days of Steep once more and revisit the 90s DLC.
I'm still picturing that Daffy drag from our Ski Knuckle Huck event. If you got different style, it is going to shine. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how in-depth these different stats are for equipment. I know you can pick between slopestyle and freeride, but I don't know if you can customize further from that point, because you might see people very specialized in certain things and they're going to have their own distinct style. We already see that with some of our competitions and video edits. People prefer certain tricks, like Ryota loves doing grinds on ungrindable objects. But if people are able to tweak their stats to do exactly what they want to do, it's going to be insane.
And the last thing we have to touch upon in the tricks category here is the fact that every gear you have will also have its own stats for those tricks, which means you max out one of the gear loadouts and you're going to rotate faster. You might be able to hold a grind a little better. You're going to be able to level up those specific gears to allow your character to kind of take on its own character and its own style, where you can perfect what you want to perfect. You don't just have to be all around. And honestly, it's going to make our jobs a whole lot easier. You're going to be able to figure out who's on the mountain without having to look at a kit. Like Just Steep It always wears the same thing when he's up on the mountain. He won't have to do that anymore, because hopefully his trick set will be enough definition of his character, of his ride style, that you will just know. Kinda sounds like the pros that we have now, no?
I know wherever I am on the mountain, I'm going to be using the slowest spin skis possible so I can do super silky backflips.
Oh yeah, we're both just gonna be milking it up there. Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Let's talk about more.
Well, you're in luck, because I also talked about grinds. If you're in auto mode, you just have to jump on the rail and that's it. But if you're in manual mode, just like the rotations, you can control the board position, do different types of rail moves, you can control your rider position on the rail to do turns, presses, and if you land precisely, you'll get special additional bonuses to your score.
And leading up to these grinds, you're also going to have improved manual abilities, being able to control your board or your skis before you even touch the rail when you activate their air, board, skis control options in the game settings. So I'm assuming that that is going to allow you to do absolutely whatever you want to do. You want to sneak a quick grab in there before you smack that rail? Hey, Riders got you, baby.
And having that option to activate the air board / skis control makes me think that maybe you can get rid of that magnetism that you find in the rails in Steep. I know it's super helpful for beginners and even me trying to pull off a lot of tricks. I'm not trying to get the fanciest grinds, so once I jump, it's gonna help me land on the rail. If you're able to deactivate that and truly control the tips of your skis to land that on just a rail, I feel like taps and grinds are just going to get a whole lot sexier.
I admittedly still have troubles getting up onto boxes sometimes. When I miss like that magnet point right at the front, and I'm trying to get up on the sides and just smacking over and over and wiping out over and over again, looking like a complete amateur, because I am. Yeah, so this might not be a feature that I'm super looking forward to. Going totally manual, doing grinds. I might just not do grinds. That might be my character's MO, is no grinds, ever.
You're going to be one of those weird superstitious riders that whenever someone's like, why don't you ever really use the rails in the park? You'll be like, not my thing, man. It just is.
Hey man, the mountain speaks to you, and the mountain speaks to me. It told me something different. That's what I'm listening to.
Something else that I know we've been asking for such a long time. I'm so happy to see this. They go into detail about variety and combos. And the first time you perform a certain freestyle trick in your run, you'll get a bonus for it. That only happens once per move per run. So that kind of forces you to explore every single trick, rotation, grind, to maximize the score instead of just pulling off the same grab and the same spin that used to net you the most points that you found in Steep.
That goes back to the whole manual mode trick set thing. It's not going to handle the same way, or it's not going to handle the way we expect. You're going to be forced to learn all 72, or at least a good chunk of all of those tricks to truly shine and to be a high score chaser up there. Whether you're competing with your friends or for gold in the game, this is really going to weed out the herd as to who rises above the crowd.
I remember us constantly talking to them about having a variety incentive in the scores. We didn't do a Tartiflette Games slopestyle for the longest time because we didn't just want to take the score the game gives you, but at the same time, it's a lot of work to go through and judge everyone's tricks by ourselves. And the same thing happened with the Olympics competition that was over in Poland, where the winners of the slopestyle, they pulled off the best technical run, but it looked a lot like the same thing the entire way down. It's, a lot of nose grabs on the snowboard. The best run that we watched was the one that got creative out in the park because they weren't just trying to go for the longest, slowest grinds and the most spins in the air. They were getting steezy with it, and you didn't get rewarded with that before.
We are also super excited that the controls are going to be completely customizable. You're going to be able to map your controls, and that's just going to be a huge advantage, like I said right before, for those high score chasers, the ones that are really trying to hone in their craft and rise above the rest of the riders.
In this blog, they also included the breakdown of what's included in the gold and the ultimate editions of the game, because it's not a Ubisoft game until there's at least 3 editions and a laundry list of add-ons that are included with them. But in all seriousness, if you get the gold edition of the game, it comes with the year 1 pass. The Ultimate Edition comes with it as well. The Year 1 Pass includes 8 different exotic kits, and the exotic kits allow you to modify the gameplay experience in the form of gear upgrades. That includes the rocket skis and the rocket bike. So those are both considered exotic kits, taking a current sport and then beefing it up with something else.
And we do also know that these exotic kits will not be main disciplines, so don't expect to see a lot of challenges for the rocket bike. These are pretty much going to be used to free roam the map and experience the game from a different perspective. So this is kind of just like getting in a car in GTA and going for a drive. You're not doing it for any points, you're just doing it because you want to.
But we're going to want to do a rocket ski huck.
Well, now, we are not the game. We are TFG, and hell yeah. Rocket Ski Huck is coming soon. Oh man, I can see it now.
The only difference with the Ultimate Edition is it comes with 4 exclusive cosmetic packs and 20 helicopter tickets, so I'd recommend getting this if you're either into looking like the stars, the rainbow, neon colors, or skulls, or if you're lazy and don't want to actually explore the map yourself and just cheat and use the map.
We also have no word on whether or not helicopter tickets will be obsolete at a certain level yet. I know back in Steep, you reached level 25 and you were home free. You could free roam and drop wherever you wanted, kind of making those helicopter tickets a little bit obsolete. So again, no word on whether or not that will be the case again, but for sure, as anyone already knows, having those helicopter tickets at the start of the game is a huge help.
It does also take away that feeling of exploration though, so if that's something you're interested in, I'd recommend not using the helicopter tickets for everything. A big part of Steep was seeing a spot on the mountain and having to fly over to it or ski over to it or use your binoculars to unlock that drop zone before you could actually get there.
Very true. Very true. Hey, why did they not go with Steep 2? Why did they start a whole new franchise?
Well, we already had Steep, and Steep, the name was already taken, and we actually hold the copyright to Steeper, so no, I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, they wanted to kind of rebrand this because they want to deliver a massive multiplayer playground around the same sports that you found in Steep, but it's going to look different enough that the name Steep 2 or calling it some sequel to Steep wouldn't really be fitting for it.
It seems like they really went back and rewrote their priorities. I mean, from the very start, the number one complaint from the community was the fact that we couldn't all get on the mountain together and stand along the knuckle huck while we were watching our friends do it. We all had to kind of admire from a distance, which was fine for a while, but in this day and age when there are so many games out there, battle royales where you can put 100 different people in, you can get these huge parties together and have a blast, it only makes sense to move forward with that idea in mind. And I just don't think that there was any way that they could do this with the name Steep a Steep 2, where it wouldn't also dissuade people because they see the name again and realize, oh, that's not a community-based game. They flipped the script, they renamed it, started a totally different franchise with a totally different mindset about how the game should be played.
And when we look back at the history of the studio over in Annecy, they were always just a support studio for Ubisoft, working on multiplayer sections of games. I know they did the multiplayer for one of the Assassin's Creed games. So they eventually got the opportunity to make the game that studio wanted, which was inspired by the mountains and the Alps and skiing and snowboarding. And now Riders Republic is the game that Ubisoft as a whole wants to release about sports, while going back to the sports that Annecy worked so well on. And this is something that's pretty common in the gaming industry. I've heard a couple different examples on one of the podcasts I listen to. There's a lot of places where, there's a bigger company that owns a bunch of smaller studios, and it's a one for you, one for me type deal where you make one game that the company really wants, and then they will provide support for the studio to make their passion project. And then they just go back and forth. So this seems like Steep was the passion project that Annecy got to work on, and now Riders Republic is bringing the strength of both Ubisoft and Annecy themselves to create one massive game.
That is so incredibly spot on. I mean, we have both had the wonderful opportunity to sit down and talk to some of the developers from Annecy, and every time we would discuss Steep, you could just see the light in their eyes go on. It truly was a passion project. They are snuggled right in the French Alps. You look out the window from their studio and bam, there's the mountains. So to see a studio like that get the go-ahead to construct a game based around where they grow up, their location, where they have lived, and what they live and breathe for every single day. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that, but we are the community, and we did ask for more than that, and they sure as heck delivered. This is only the first discussion that Mitch and I get to have surrounding these developer blogs. They are going to be putting about 2 of these out every month. It's going to be 1 every 2 weeks. So starting from last Friday, give it 2 weeks and we'll be back at it discussing even more information released from Riders Republic.
And as these developer blogs continue to be released, we'll be keeping the same style that we did for this one on our channel, where the day of the developer blog, we will have a short video reading through just the developer blog, all the straight facts, none of our opinion. And then a couple days later, once we get the chance to sit down and talk to each other, we'll record that so you can hear our thoughts on what's on the developer blog.
This is quickly turning into, I think, the longest STEEPCAST we have ever done, so let's try and wrap this up as well as we can. Let's head on over to the weekly challenge.
For this week's weekly challenge, the topic was Riders Republic because we came up with it when the game was announced. And we have 2 submissions. They are both golden, so we will kick it off with the man Flair. He created his own montage in Steep, plus it looks like the Descenders, so cheating a little bit there, but I love it, to give us all of the sports in Riders Republic.
Killer. As usual, Flair is just killing the game. Someone needs to get this guy a job in graphic design.
And man, I don't think I've ever noticed that hoodie in Steep, but I kind of want that in real life. A SAS since birth, bright pink hoodie. I would rock that on the mountain. All right, and this next one I think is the winner, Nick. So you haven't seen it yet. You're watching my screen right now, so I want to get your live reaction. Close your eyes for me, okay?
All right, yep, they're closed.
So Lucas prefaces this picture by saying he has been in touch with the devs since the weekly challenge was announced about Riders Republic. He went for the extra effort to try and find anything from them. He got some luck. He was able to get an unreleased photo from the game. So open your eyes in 3, 2, 1.
What's going on here? Oh, that's too good. Is that Winterfest? That looks like sushi tunnels.
I love the detail that went into this one of him surfing on a bike. So the Riders Republic and of course Winterfest. I somehow hope that makes it into Riders Republic just for the memes.
Thanks, Lucas.
Well, the topic for next week's weekly challenge is in real life recreation. So you can recreate one of your favorite winter sports photos.
It also might help if you Photoshop the two pictures next to one another. So if you have a picture of Shaun White on the left and a picture of you on the right. But I'm not going to tell you how to submit your weekly challenge. The following week is going to be, wait for it, grinds. We've never done grinding as a weekly challenge. So hit us up.
And of course, you can submit those photos over in our Discord channel linked down below in the weekly challenge channel.
It's time for questions. Let's go. We have a full list of questions lined up. Unfortunately, we both talked a whole bunch this week, so we're just going to pick 2, and then we're going to finish the rest of these up next week. Thank you so much to Steepest Legend. His first question: if you play an open world game, example, Steep, would you rather get an update with an expansion of the map or get a new massive?
With this question, I believe he's asking if we would rather get an expansion of the area we can ride in the Alps, so maybe lifting up some of that fog and revealing some more mountains in that area, or if we get a new massive instead, so an Alaska or a Japan. And I think with this one, I kind of like getting a new massive just because we can go to a completely different part of the world, get a different look, a different type of snow, different type of trees, and maybe some trails or cities.
Now see, I think you can also do new cities, new trails with just a bigger an expansion of the maps that are already there. I mean, hey, Japan is my favorite. Japan is also kind of small. I would love to have way more to explore in Japan, like Alps size map for Japan.
That's very true. I think ideally you could just have them all on one massive map if that would be possible, where you can travel to every single possible place in Steep without having to go through a loading screen, but that'll depend more on technology. And the second question he had was, do we like Queen? And if yes, I think that's obviously yes for both of us. What's your favorite song from them?
Well, honestly, never got into Queen. Like, I listen to all of their songs that they have on the radio, but I think that's just about it. But I will give you my favorite of theirs. It's probably Don't Stop Me Now.
Well, that's good, because I was having a tough time picking between Don't Stop Me Now and Fat Bottom Girls, so I'll go with Fat Bottom Girls because we would play that on Rock Band all the time, screaming at the top of our lungs, and then of course just has an epic drum fill and then right into a long guitar solo.
Thank you to Steepest Legend for a couple extra questions. Like we said, we're going to get to those next week because we talked your ear off this week. Sorry about the long STEEPCAST. Thank you if you have made it this far. You can follow us on Instagram at Nick and Mitch YT. You can head on over to our dead Twitter page at Nick or Mitch. Of course, if you're not a part of the Discord yet, you can join the party by clicking the link down below. Thanks again to everyone who submitted this week. Next week is episode 40. We have absolutely nothing planned to celebrate 40 straight weeks of STEEPCAST. Yeah, that's just about it. We'll see you guys next week for episode 40. I'm Nick.
And I'm Mitch.
And we'll see yins on the slopes.